In the world of foam flinging, many blasters are sought after because they are powerful. But past that, there is a section of blasters that are sought after because they're not so much powerful, but they're rare. And even further past that are the combination of the two. The rare but powerful. The desirable yet efficient. And very, very few blasters fall into that category. And today I'm going to show you what will possibly be the greatest thing I will ever find at a thrift store ever. I could find a crossbow, and I wouldn't even care. Because, in many ways, this blaster is superior to a crossbow. And it's just about as rare, if not rarer. But this kind of sucks, because this is the second time I've shown you what I found at a thrift store, and yet I've already found the pinnacle. So, let it be known that every episode past this is going to be massively disappointing. But first, let's start off with some crap, because I managed to find myself a $2 Vigilon, or Vigilon, whatever you want to call them, because apparently you don't call a Diatron a Diatron, you call it a, I don't even know anymore, I don't even remember. I call them Diatrons, but apparently it's Diatron. So this is a Vigilon, because that's hilarious. But yes, found it for $2. It does work, although I don't believe you're supposed to be able to pull the trigger when it's like this. And the other problem is if you prime it too fast, it slams back forward and doesn't work quite properly. Not a big deal because it needs to be modded anyway, and I'm sure it does actually, if you just go like that and pull the trigger, it does work. So, yep, this is like my 9th one I've found, so I think I'm actually, I think I have more of them than Dart Wars even has. But that's not what we're here to look at today. Because the next thing I'm about to show you is incredibly rare. And that is this. And I'm sure many of you were expecting a noobopotamus, but no, I assure you that this is an actual thing, and it is incredibly rare, and doesn't have a hippopotamus glued to it. At least not yet. And this is an Ertl pump action shotgun, or PAS. And where do I begin with this one? Well, for one, the only place that I believe you could get them was Amazon and Bass Pro Shop. So that limits its distribution quite well. And you wouldn't think of looking for something like this, because in the very beginning it does in fact shoot balls. It's got a little hole in there for stacking balls in it to shoot balls. And, well, I think it was released, probably the late 2000s, but again, it wasn't released in huge quantities, and I don't think it was ever remade after that. And there are no identifying markings or anything on it. It is a blank slate. There's no dates, no manufacturer, nothing. And all this one has is the $2 sticker from Goodwill. And the reason why I found this one is because I've actually looked for it. In my conquest of Dart Wars, I have looked at many a blasters, including the much desirable crossbow, and this was one that came up quite frequently, and yet it was impossible to find. Not only because if you try to look for one on eBay, nobody knows it's made by Ertl, but in the grand scheme of things, there's no identifying markings on it whatsoever! So you could never actually tell where it came from unless you knew what it was. So you can type in, like, foam ball, pump action shot. You still don't find anything. They're rare. They're hard to find. Now, how the hell this one wound up in a Goodwill, I have no idea. And I'm quite glad it did, because it's one of those situations where I think the only reason I found it is because nobody knows what it is, and it was broken. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. But yeah, it didn't obviously work, and it's like, you can't tell what it is. Like, unless you knew this thing's like, it shoots balls, you wouldn't pick this up, unless you're like me and you know ahead of time what it actually was. And that actually kind of comes down to stuff like, people are looking for crossbows. Like, even people who don't buy Nerf stuff know, a lot of them know, when you see a crossbow, you know they're pretty valuable and pretty rare. And, well, I have one. I have never finished modding it because, A, I don't want to mess it up too much. Put the 2 screws in the side right there. I'm just going to put nuts on those and then put my custom internals in there, but I'm always worried about breaking the damn thing, so I've never actually finished working on it. That and the fact that you have to pull this back and pull the trigger to fire, and then you have to do stuff up here, and well, I have one, and I'll finish it eventually. And I got this one for, I think, like $70. It wasn't that expensive. I found it on eBay like 2 years ago. Quite nice. So, why would this be better than a crossbow? Well, for instance, you can tell they both have similar plunger volumes. In fact, they're both very similar in that regard. And in fact, here is the plunger tube that comes stock in an Ertl pump-action shotgun. And you will notice it is massive. Here is a unopened can of Canada Dry that's been sitting here for God knows how long. And here is the plunger tube. Now, obviously, the can is thicker. Not by a whole lot, but it is. But this is obviously taller. And it is absolutely massive. A massive plunger tube. And it's very well made. The way this blaster is kind of made structurally, it is a very beautiful shell because all of the stuff's already reinforced. You can push this thing to the absolute max with very little reinforcement. The triggers have a tendency to break, the little knob right there that catches the plunger rod. Yeah, those have a tendency to break, but guess what? That's easily fixable. In fact, you can make your own trigger, and again, we will get to that. Actually, we might as well get to that right now, because as you notice, this pump-action shotgun is empty. In fact, here's the plunger tube. Why is that? Well, I did mention it was broken, and it was probably broken in the worst way possible, in that this right here is the plunger rod. So, you know, this would slide back on here and catch on the trigger right there. You can, if I get my fat fingers out of the way, you can see how that would catch. And then this is the plunger head, which obviously goes in here. So, clearly, this is broken. Now, if it was just like this was snapped off, there's actually a guide on how to fix that. But this is warped beyond warped. And, well, it's not going to be of much use to me. As you can notice, it's also fairly dirty. This guy was not taken care of. Thankfully, the internals of the shell are still quite magnificent. Well, what's the fix for that? Well, Venom, which is a pretty old member of the Nerf community, he makes a variety of manufactured pieces for Nerf blasters, including triggers for crossbows, and barrel spacers for every air gun under the sun. In fact, if you type in AirTech 3000 on eBay, you'll more than likely find one of his kits, which includes an AirTech 3000, 6 pieces of foot-long PETG, and 2 polycarbonate barrel spacers. And this is a complete kit that will make your AirTech 3000 shoot insanely hard. I would know because I bought 2 of them. I don't have either of them anymore because the first one I broke. Do not use super glue to try to fit in your barrels. And the other one was stolen. Yes, somebody actually stole it out of my car. I don't know why, but they did. And if I ever see them, I will hit them with this. Yes. And I am quite excited because Venom also makes a complete drop-in kit replacement of all of the internals for this blaster, including a polycarbonate trigger. And once you have that in there, you've got yourself pump action for fast firing speed and massive air volume, making this, in many ways, superior to the crossbow. Crossbow looks pretty cool, but I like this more because this actually looks like an old-timey blunderbuss. And, well, the crossbow, you gotta pull it back here and pull the trigger, and it's really bad. And some people can get past that. That's the reason why, like, the plus bows exist, is because crossbow shells are hard to come by. And the other problem with the crossbow is you have to reinforce the crap out of the internals, or you're going to wind up with one massive, sharp, twisted piece of plastic. And for how expensive these things are, that kind of sucks. Again, that's why I haven't finished this one. But as you can see, the internals of this require basically no modification to handle K26 springs and so forth. So, I think he said he'll ship it out by no later than Saturday? I am quite happy. And of course, this is getting a little bit of a modification to pretty it up. I do like the kind of like jimping and stuff right there. A little texture fake safety, all that crazy crap. And in fact, it even has lock and open written there. That's pretty crazy. And there's nothing on the other side. But it is a beautiful blaster, and I'm going to hopefully paint it up to make it look a little more like a old-timey shotgun blunderbuss, because you just can't have this big, huge space back here and not have it look all adorned. It is not the most comfortable of blasters. Many people, in fact, I think Coop has an old video where he put a Spectre handle and stock on his, and it looks beautiful, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm going to keep it like this because I like the holsterability of this short thing like that. I like Jim to be able to whip it out and go, oh, dance and shoot. And I'm quite excited, and that means that every single thing I find from a thrift store from here on out is going to be a massive disappointment, because I've already found the best thing I will ever find at the thrift store ever. Maybe not the most valuable, although I can't find one on eBay to compare prices, but definitely one of the best, if not the best, because like I said, it is pump action and it's going to shoot like crazy. Thank you very much for watching, and if you do happen to own one of these, or you happen to see one in the wild, for the love of God, buy it!